I'm known for two things here on the internet. That is eating Kit Kats incorrectly and talking passionately about Mario games. And I'm going to be doing at least one of those things here today because we got a brand new 2D Mario game on the Nintendo Switch, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. It's finally here, and I'm going to tell you all about it. But before I do, be sure to like and subscribe for much more amazing content like this here on youtube.com/Carpool Gaming. Now, without any further ado, let's go. So to say that I was excited about Super Mario Bros. Wonder coming into this thing is a bit of an understatement. I mean, it brought tears to my eyes when this thing was announced during the June Direct that we got earlier this year. I remember watching that and being so blown away by the direction that 2D Mario was taking after a long absence. I mean, it had been over 10 years since we had New Super Mario Bros. U back on the Wii U, and I think that, like many people, I was sort of burnt out by the New Super Mario Bros. Series, especially visually. It was something that the 2D Mario series needed a refresh, right? And so to see something as bold as Mario saying "Wowie Zowie" and coming out there like an elephant with an elephant power-up was a huge deal. And it felt like a refresh for the series. It felt like something new. And in many, many ways, Super Mario Bros. Wonder is. In many ways, it is what I want a 2D Mario game to be. Now, it doesn't nail it 100% of the time, and we'll get into that. But in a lot of the important ways, this is, for my money, the best 2D Mario game since Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo. And I think the big question coming into this is how it does follow up from the New Super Mario Bros. Series that a lot of people, again, like myself, were a little bit sick of at the time. So coming into this, what is the point of difference? How does Super Mario Bros. Wonder carry us forward into the new era of 2D Mario? Well, the story setup of this one is pretty similar to stuff we've seen in the past. Don't come into Super Mario Bros. Wonder expecting some incredible plot. It's very much the same. It is, hey, we're in this new place now, the Flower Kingdom, Mario and friends. There's 12 playable characters in total here, and Mario and friends are here in the Flower Kingdom. Bowser comes through and mucks everything up. Prince Florian, the, ruler of the Flower Kingdom, has sort of asked for Mario and friends' help to take down Bowser and restore peace to the Flower Kingdom. It's a very, very simple, traditional Mario setup, and, it's not going to be anything much more deep than that, but it is in the sort of visual identity of the game and in the just creative point of order that this game takes that is really what separates this from the things that came before. The second you come into Super Mario Bros. Wonder, you're greeted by this beautiful art style. I mean, we were reading interviews and things with the developers where they spoke about how much more budget and time was given to the art and animation of the game, and it shows. It's little stuff. Like when you're holding down the run button, even when you're standing still, facial expressions of the characters will change. Little things like when Mario goes into a warp pipe and he, like takes his hat is like floating and he grabs it and pulls it in behind him. I mean, stuff like that is so good. There's so many little teeny tiny details. The way that Elephant Mario kind of has to squeeze through because he's so big. It's excellent. I mean, it is one of the prettiest games on the Nintendo Switch for my money, to say nothing of the backgrounds and just all of the, just from a pure visual standpoint, this game feels like a total breath of fresh air from everything we'd seen before, comparative to, again, the kind of flat art style that New Super Mario Bros. Was kind of being derided for before this game came out. And I think that's a big deal. I think that even something as simple as that is a major change that goes a long way. And I think that the animation in particular even goes as far as to alter the way the game feels to play and controls a little bit. I spent extensive time with not only, of course, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I played through the entire game. I 100%ed it. Took me right about 26 hours to 100% the game, if you're curious. And I also went through and played a bunch of New Super Mario Bros. U on the deluxe version for the Nintendo Switch as a point of comparison to see the differences in the way these games played. And to be honest with you guys, they play quite similarly, but there are some key differences that make Super Mario Bros. Wonder feel much more snappy, and I think many of those differences, if not all of those differences, boil down to the animation. When Mario slows down and stops from a run, it's much more quick and snappy in Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Little tiny things, even the wall slides, they feel very similar, but there's little tiny animation differences that make Super Mario Bros. Wonder feel way more snappy and feel just quick and immediate. There is a sense of just precision in Wonder that I don't think we quite got in New Super Mario Bros. U, and going back and replaying New Super Mario Bros. U, there was a bit of a slidiness in comparison, and I think some of that comes from even just a few extra frames of animation, just a little bit of snappiness that is given to Wonder's animation. Little teeny tiny things, even though the core of it is so similar. You still have your little midair spin that you could do. The bones of New Super Mario Bros. U are still very much intact here, but they've tightened up just little teeny tiny tweaks that make this thing feel way more responsive and feels great. And I think the level design in this game is really strong too. I mean, there's a ton of variety going on, while a lot of the stuff that you're going to be doing is, of course, your standard 2D Mario platforming fare. There's also plenty of stuff to do besides. There is a couple of levels that are puzzle sort of levels. There's race levels. There's obviously your kind of auto-scroller battleship kind of levels. There's quite a lot of variety. You're not doing the same thing for too long, and the game has some stuff in place to prevent you from ever really feeling that way. Some of those are the wonder effects, and some of those are things like the badges, which we'll get into in a second. But there's just a lot of variety and creativity on display here with the level design. There are some secrets, although to be honest, not as many as I was hoping. I was hoping that this game would be just rife with secret exits and fun things to find. Very, the Mario 3 fan in me was kind of hoping for that. The game doesn't really have that, but the stuff that it does have in that regard is really good, and I'm kind of just glad it's here at all. There's a couple moments playing this game where I definitely had sort of moment where I'm oh man, that's really cool. And I won't spoil what some of that is here, but I think the big thing in terms of the point of difference, we've talked about visuals, animation, controls, level design, and stuff like this. I think the big point of difference here is the wonder effects. That's obviously the big sort of gimmick of Mario Wonder, are the wonder effects. You find these wonder flowers in almost every stage of the game, if I'm not mistaken. The vast majority of the game stages have wonder flowers in them that trigger some sort of crazy effect, whether it be something like the warp pipe inchworm moments that we've seen before, to kind of musical stages a la Rayman Legends or Rayman Origins. There's a lot of stuff like that in the game. There's some truly spectacular ones that I won't spoil. There are some that are a little lackluster. Those are kind of in there too, but they really do shake up the sort of loop. The amount of variety that the wonder effects provide, even sometimes including transformation stuff, I think really kind of serves to fill in the gap that new power-ups typically would. So speaking of new power-ups, we've got the drill power-up, which is really cool. It allows you to drill under the ground. You can go kind of underneath obstacles and get collectibles. You can also drill into the ceiling, and there's some fun little things you could do with that. Get into some areas you normally couldn't. Really cool. You could also drill through kind of these gemstone type things that sometimes have hidden little collectibles in them and stuff, which is fun. You've got the bubble suit, which I honestly didn't think I was going to care too much about before the game came out, but it's really cool in practice. Not only can you send out your bubbles to take down enemies, and even some enemies that are typically unkillable, but the big thing is you can send out bubbles and use them as platforms, and it isn't the kind of thing where it just goes out and it's just a static thing. It continues to move, like the wind carries the bubble, and you have to account for that. And what I love about that is it's not just giving you like an additional platform. You're having to learn a certain level of skill and mastery or whatever to use the bubble effectively. It feels a lot like Cappy. I mean, these things, both the drill suit and the bubble suit, very much feel like a inspiration from 3D Mario games. It feels like you've taken concepts from a 3D Mario game and brought them into 2D. And that kind of feeling permeates this entire game in, for me, a really positive way. The other big new suit is the elephant. It's not really a suit, it's a transformation, I guess. The elephant form. Elephant form Mario is a mixed bag for me. I think it's great. I love it. I think it is super cute and cool and well designed and all of this. But functionally, it doesn't really do anything all that interesting. You can hold water in your trunk, and you can use that water to water some plants that will sometimes maybe sprout a vine to get you to a different area or something like that. And that's pretty cool. But for the most part, it's pretty much just like you get bigger. You can hit things with your trunk and smack them away, and, there's not all that much interesting function. Like with the drill, it's like I can go into the ceiling. With the bubble, I have a moving new platform that I can sort of summon or remove enemies and whatever. Elephant Mario is just kind of a big, a big old elephant transformation that can just burst through things and knock things away. But still, it's very cute and good, and that goes a long way for me. As somebody who loves, seeing Mario in crazy forms and suits, I'm all about it. So, Elephant Mario is good in my book. They're all good. I like them a lot. And like I said, the wonder effects sometimes give you some cool transformations as well that totally change up the game. So you've got a lot of sort of variety and things to see Mario do, in addition to bringing back your sort of mainstay stuff, like the Fire Flower is, of course, back in this game. So very cool, and cool to see the way that the other, sort of playable characters engage with this stuff too. So with the exception of Yoshi and Nabbit, all of the characters have got their own kind of elephant form versions, which is cute. All of them have their own, takes on the drill suit and the Fire Flower. This is the first time we got Daisy playable in a 2D Mario game, and so we're getting to see Daisy. What does it look like when Daisy picks up a Fire Flower? Now we finally get to see. It's really cool. And that's the kind of stuff that I think means a lot to longtime 2D Mario fans like myself. I think another thing, and maybe one of the biggest highlights of this game for me, is the Flower Kingdom in general. The Flower Kingdom is adjacent to the Mushroom Kingdom. If we're talking about the lore, it's not too far away. The game sets that up from the very beginning, and in fact, in the opening shot of the game, we can see the very kind of iconic hills and mushrooms of the Mushroom Kingdom. So the Flower Kingdom is kind of a neighboring kingdom to the Mushroom Kingdom, and so it isn't extraordinarily different. However, the amount of variety in the biomes that you go to, the Petal Isles themselves being this really cool little kind of hub space that is explorable, the way they allow you to navigate through the world map with things like these little petal pads that can fly you to other areas, or being able to easily pop around to different stages, which is not something that you could do in New Super Mario Bros. U. That was always a pain. Just getting around the world map used to be a pain, and now it isn't. And that's huge. But more than that, the enemy variety here is out of control. I mean, there's gotta be a couple dozen new enemies in this game, and they're incredible. I mean, they are so good, and I'm somebody who loves Mario enemies. When I throw back to my favorite Mario stuff, It is Super Mario Brothers 3 and Mario World, and seeing like these crazy new enemies. Mario World takes place in Dinosaur Land, so we're seeing these weird dinosaur enemies that are unlike what we saw before. And here it's like seeing new enemies in a new world really goes a long way to making that new world feel new. And the Flower Kingdom does. It's not, you do still have your mainstays, you still, you got your Koopas, you got your Goombas and all that, that's still here. But to have like all of this new stuff packed in there too, like these hoppy cats that, like mimic Mario whenever he jumps, and these like mummy sort of characters that walk around and you have to unravel them. You have to grab their little like loose bandage and unravel them. And the cool thing is that often the level design is designed specifically around the enemies in it. So when you're dealing with these mummies, sometimes they are wrapped up so high, you have to reckon with the actual like space that you have to unravel them. There's a new enemy called Outmaway that will kick these massive block platforms at you that you have to utilize in order to make your way through the stage. So I love the way that Mario Wonder not only incorporates just a slew of incredible new enemies, great new enemy designs, but they work these enemies into the level design. Some of the ways that the game utilizes these new enemies are truly, truly special and incredible. And it was probably pound for pound my favorite thing about the game. I absolutely love that. Now, something we should stop and talk about is the badge system. So while there are 12 playable characters here, you've got all these different Mario characters. They all control exactly the same for the most part, with the exception of Yoshi and Nabbit, who are in there for accessibility functions. They all are completely identical. They control the same, they feel the same. It just kind of comes down to who you want to play as. The point of difference comes in with these badges, these collectible sort of things that can augment your gameplay. It might be something simple like a parachute cap that allows you to kind of slowly float down in midair, very similar to like a Peach's parasol that we've seen in past games. They even bring back stuff like the sort of charge jump that we've seen in past Mario games, where you crouch down, charge up a jump, and then you got like a super high jump afterwards. That kind of stuff comes back as well. You've also got things like a dolphin kick that allows you a little more mobility in the water. The game doesn't have a ton of underwater stages, but it's helpful. There are even like badge challenge stages that are specifically designed around the badges, and each badge has usually two, like a standard and then kind of like a mastery that you can find later on to tackle challenge stages that are designed around and utilize the badge in question. I wish there were more of those, actually. I wish that the game had like even double or even triple the amount of specific badge levels, because I thought those were really cool, short and sweet, kind of bite-sized mini levels that felt really cool and well designed, and designed specifically around their badges in a way that is not super incentivized in the stages themselves. So in a standard stage, you have to be able to get through that thing without the badge, right? So there's only so much that can be designed to incorporate those badges. So I totally get that. That's all fine. That's why I would have liked to see more kind of like either incentive to use unique badges, maybe even if it was something as simple as I get more coins if I use this badge versus that badge, or maybe there's like an extra checkbox for me to check to use, to complete the stage using this inconvenient badge, or whatever the case may be. I would have liked to be pushed to use some of these unique badges a little bit more. I think there could have been some opportunity for some interesting gameplay variety that way. I mean, what does a stage look like if like normally it's a quite easy stage for me to get through, but maybe it's the kind of thing where if I wear the invisibility badge, this stage is all of a sudden quite hard. It'd be cool if the game kind of pushed me in that direction, and it never really does, other than these, again, little bite-sized badge challenge stages, which there aren't ultimately all that many of. So I would have liked to see the badge system used a little bit more. And I think that some of the stuff that like I think I kind of struggle with the game on is that like what we have is good. I wanted it to go a little bit harder though. So I think we've been pretty positive on the game so far. but there are some avenues of the game that I did want to be pushed a little bit further, and I did find myself kind of wanting more from. One thing that I think is going to be divisive for people is the online play. It does work a little bit differently than you might expect, though. It's not just, hey, we're all playing the same stage together at the same time and that's it. You can actually get into a lobby with your friends and just kind of like play whatever you want. You can dip around, people can play different stages, you can do different stages together. It's a very passive multiplayer experience with friends online, and you're kind of playing with like their ghosts. Like the game is accounting for latency by kind of transferring like ghost data to you from other players. That is not quite in real time, but it's like close enough. It doesn't have to be in real time for it to be precise enough. And it created little moments like we were streaming the game at twitch.tv/Carpool Gaming Live, and I was struggling with a puzzle level, and Ryan Turford was able to come in and like, hey, okay, I'll be there in a second. Let me get to that level real quick, and then we can solve this puzzle together. And we were able to do stuff like that, and I love that. I love that the game kind of allows this like passive sort of experience where you can do your own thing, but if you have something that you need help with, if you want friends to come and experience that with you, you can do that too. That passive kind of, multiplayer experience extends to the like randos. It extends to the overarching asynchronous online connectivity. It's kind of similar to, and prepare yourself for this comparison, but it's kind of similar to Dark Souls. When you play something like a Soulsborne game connected to the internet, just like in this, you see a whole bunch of other players playing the game at the same time as you are. And what's really neat is this creates a sort of, again, passive multiplayer experience. While they can't directly interact with your world, they can help you in some ways. You can, for example, give items to other players. If you are picking up an item in your world and maybe you already have something equipped and you wind up dropping another item, it could pop up in another player's world if you're connected online. They can also drop standees. We'll talk more about standees in a bit, but they can drop standees that can act as, kind of a point of revival for online players who die. So if I drop a standee for you, you die in your game, you can find your way back to my standee and revive yourself. Likewise, if there are no standees around, but there are other players around, they can also hit your ghost and revive you that way too. So there's a lot of kind of cool, helpful things. And what I found myself doing is kind of creating this like sort of, voiceless rapport with random strangers on the internet playing the game. There was a moment where I would be going into the final final challenge of the game, which is kind of difficult, and finding these random players who are needing help through, and we all were kind of like creating this silent bond together as we were getting through one of the game's final challenges. So that was pretty cool. And after I had finished the challenge for myself, I actually found myself wanting to go back in and help people who were struggling. There was a time where I found this dude who was playing as Nabbit. So already I was like, okay, like Nabbit is one of the characters who can't take damage already. So maybe they were already kind of having a tough time, but I sort of went through that stage with them the whole way, and whenever you die, I would have my standee there ready to go and revive him, and I sort of Sherpa'd him through the final challenge of the game, and then we get to the final flagpole together, and he's just using like his smiley emoji just over and over and over again, just spamming the smiley emoji. So cool. And like stuff like that is great. Like little moments like that the game allows for, I think is really cool. Passive multiplayer is handled kind of brilliantly, and I don't really know if there is a better way to handle this for me with a 2D Mario game. Yeah, there are going to be some people who are disappointed that you can no longer pick up and throw and troll your friends in a co-op and whatnot. There are people who are going to be let down by that, but at the end of the day, shouldn't 2D Mario co-op mean that, hey, we get to play 2D Mario co-op at the same time? That makes sense to me. I think they did about as good a job as they could, all things considered. And I'm really happy with how that all shook out. So let's talk about the sort of structure of the game and the focus. I mentioned the standees. This all feeds into this sort of focus on collection and this focus on like exploration, discovery, and collection that almost makes this game, hear me out on this, almost makes it feel a little bit more like a Donkey Kong Country style thing than anything else to me. Each stage has got at least a couple of wonder seeds to collect. You've got these like purple coins that are a currency that you can spend at the Poplin shop to either get yourself, sometimes they sell new badges that way, sometimes they sell 1-ups there, you can get standees that way as well. These purple coins are like one of the currencies. You've also got your standard Mario gold coins, but all those are good for is once you get 100 of them, you get an extra life. That's standard Mario fare. You come in, you have those, you got your wonder seeds, you got your purple coins, you got these purple coins that are big and worth 10, very similar to the big star coins in New Super Mario Brothers. That's all fine. There's 3 of them on each stage. You also need to reach the top of the flagpole in each stage. The game does notate that. And if the stage has got any sort of like secret exit, then that is required for 100%ing the stage as well. And that'll be denoted by this sort of like flower check mark on the back of the course list. So it's quite easy to see if you've gotten everything on a stage. And if you notice that you have everything on a stage, but there's no check mark, then chances are you've missed some kind of secret thing that is on that stage. So that's a cool way, I think, to denote like that kind of, collection aspect and push players in the right direction. The problem is, so collection for collection's sake is totally fine in my book, for starters. I think that, Donkey Kong Country does a great job of this, where it's like, cool, we have things to collect so that we can check a box. I like checking boxes as much as the next guy. Nothing wrong with that. And Mario Wonder is a fun, like, checkbox game. They have tried to incorporate, currency into this loop to get collectibles that I think are stupid. I'm just going to say it. The standees are stupid. I think they're dumb. I think that, like, the thing about them is like, you have 144 standees. Each character has got, X amount of standees at their disposal. The standees are usually like one of the power-ups or one of the forms or one of the Wonder Flower forms or whatever. And you've got this huge collection of standees you can get. The standees are used for online multiplayer specifically. And it's not even like, I don't know, like it has no personality to it. It isn't like in a Kirby game where you've got like this trophy room that you can look at. It's not like, I don't know, like there's something stagnant about it. And it isn't even the kind of thing where you can build like sort of an online identity. Like if I wanted to be, oh, hey, like there's $2 Hero. That's that guy that uses, I don't know, whatever, Elephant Daisy as his standee. You can't even do that. The way it works is when you play as a character and you put down a standee, it just cycles through one of the random standees that you have unlocked for that character. So, like, if the idea is to have standees as a little bit of a individualism or something like that, or a way to sort of like make your mark on like an online connected game or something, it doesn't really work for that. It's just kind of fluff. It's just kind of set dressing, and that's fine, but like, there's nothing more to it than that. It's just kind of stupid, and it's quite easy to hit the ceiling of the standees pretty quick. There's even a shop that you can access where you can just buy the ones you're missing straight up for 30 coins a piece. So you're going to hit the ceiling of it quite quickly, and then there's no more purpose behind the purple coins really at all. So that, I think, was a bit of a miss for me. I would have really liked to see, like, for example, right, if they took like a Splatoon 3 scheme and they said, here is a blank standee that is like your standee, and what you're unlocking is stickers or graphics or artwork to customize your standee with. I would have liked to see something like that, or even like player skins or palette swaps or something. The game's got 12 characters that, for the most part, control exactly the same. How neat would it have been if we could have unlocked a ton of other new characters that are effectively just skins, but like it's cool because like at least you're getting to play as new characters. Just something more, especially since, the purple coins are so reminiscent of Mario Odyssey, and the way that you would spend that purple coin currency in Mario Odyssey on new hats and costumes and things like this. There's nothing like that in Mario Wonder, and that was a big bummer to me. I know that it is a lot of work to design that kind of thing for 12 characters. I totally get that, but there are ways to, I feel like that there are ways to, I guess, deepen this kind of mechanic. So the standees just are not it for me. But that being said, there's also, because we have this focus on collection, exploration, discovery, the big problem with this is, unlike something like a Donkey Kong Country, the game doesn't really have that many secrets. There are some, and they're really cool, the ones that it has, but there's not that many, so we're taking away the timer, which has been a Mario series mainstay. The timer for me is about, keeping up a sort of arcadey, fast-paced, what can you achieve in the time that you're given, to the point where in something like New Super Luigi U, when you only had 100 seconds to get through a level, it created this sort of frantic energy that I really loved. And, not every Mario game needs to be a speed game, but it did provide a nice sense of tension, whereas now there's no timer and you can make your way through the stage as slowly as you want to, but it doesn't really matter because there's not all that much to discover in the stage to begin with. Like I said, there's a few secrets, but they don't go as hard with that as I would have liked them to, considering what taking away the timer allows. If you're gonna focus on collection, then give me something worthwhile to collect. And if you're going to focus on slow discovery, then give me things to slowly discover. I think that's kind of where I come down on that. Another big miss for me was boss fights in this game. Again, I don't want to overtly spoil a ton of stuff, but the boss fights in this game are not only few and far between, there's only a few of them. I was really surprised to see the lack of variety in the boss fights. Like, they're cool little set pieces and they shake up a couple of things, but in terms of the actual bosses that you're fighting, the game doesn't really do anything interesting with them at all. I was really, really, really shocked by that. And even the final confrontation with Bowser at the end, spoilers, you fight Bowser at the end, even that, while it was really cool, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for from it, I felt like. The boss fights in this felt like a big, big miss, and I'm not trying to overtly spoil anything for you, but there are some worlds where there ain't a boss fight at all. So that was really weird to me. Another thing that I think is going to be hit or miss for people is the local multiplayer. Just so you know, if you play the game locally, you still are not going to be able to interact with each other, pick people up, and throw people around like you could in New Super Mario Bros. Wii or whatever. I think it's going to be a little divisive the way they handle the camera. Whoever is sort of the game has determined is in the lead, whenever you touch the flagpole at the end or whatever, you're sort of the leader and the camera follows you. I could see that being frustrating for people. I didn't spend a ton of time with the local multiplayer, but that's the kind of thing that I think is going to be frustrating for some people, especially if you're playing with a young kid or something. That might become a frustration. I think the accessibility options are also a little bit mishandled in my opinion. This is going to be another thing that you're either going to love or hate. I've mentioned it a couple times. You got 12 playable characters. You've got a couple of different Yoshis and Nabbits who cannot take damage from enemies. They can still die if they fall into a pit. Yoshis also have the ability to be ridden on, so you can jump if you're playing as somebody, if you're playing as Yoshi, somebody can jump onto your back and you can carry them around the stage with you. That's really neat and cool, and I think that's going to be good for people who are playing with kids or gamers who might not have the skill to get to a certain place or whatever. I think that's cool, although it is weird that you give that functionality to the character that already can't die, so the more skilled player all of a sudden can't die. I don't know, kind of strange, but I wish that they had taken this approach with all of the characters. Yoshi being the one that somebody can ride on or whatever, that makes perfect sense. I'm fine with that. But why couldn't it just be a toggle so that everybody can play as whoever they want? Why couldn't it just be the kind of thing you've already evened the playing field and made all the characters control exactly the same? So why not give the exact same accessibility functions to everybody too? It seemed like a miss to me. If there is, for example, I have a friend whose daughter wants to be able to play as Peach or Daisy, but at the same time, like if they want to be able to play with the more accessible character who doesn't have to worry about dying, they're forced to play as Yoshi or Nabbit. That kind of sucks. I kind of wish that they had taken a Mario Kart approach where you can just toggle this stuff on for players who need it. I look at something like Disney Illusion Island, which came out earlier this year. Like, that game figured this out. You can just turn that on for all of the characters and still make it a valuable experience. So that's kind of where I come down on it. And also, to kind of drive home a final, I think, negative point for me, I think the game's too easy. And this is, again, going to be a subjective thing. This is just my approach on it. I'm not trying to be, MLG God Gamer over here or whatever, but I kind of carved through this thing. I played through it in a weekend. Like I said, I 100% of the game in about 26 hours. And with the exception of the literal final challenge, the kind of final gauntlet, this game's Champions Road or whatever, I had very little issue playing through most of even this game's most difficult stages. And the game does rank the stages with a star system to denote how difficult they're supposed to be. Even the game's most difficult stages for me, I was able to do usually in about 5 to 10 tries. Like I said, I got to that final challenge and I did burn like 45 lives on that challenge. It was not easy. But other than that, I felt like there was very little resistance with this game. Which is fine because the game is keeping it fresh. It's not necessarily about that, but I was kind of hoping for a little more teeth. It isn't uncommon for Mario games to have like an expansive, very challenging post game. And I was just kind of hoping for more out of that, I think. But I mean, in summary, like, I do have my issues with the game. I've talked about that. I don't think the game is perfect at all. It is not my dream 2D Mario game, but it is still the best 2D Mario game we've had, I think, since Super Mario World. I do think that this game is better than any of the new Super Mario Brothers games, although not way better. It's not, like, I think the narrative for Mario Wonder is going to become, oh my god, thank god we have this game now. We were lost in the desert with these crappy new Super Mario games for so long. I don't think that's the case. I do think it's better. I do think it's a step in the right direction. I do think it is taking us into an exciting new era of 2D Mario, and I want to see them kind of continue down this path. But like, if you roll the clock back to, 2005 or whenever New Super Mario Brothers came out, that's how we felt then too. And I think people lose sight of that. When those games came out, that felt like the new exciting era of Mario. And yes, please, more of this. Let's continue down this path. And then eventually we got sick of it. And now here we are in 2023 whining about that and thanking God for a bit of a breath of fresh air. So I do think that we should be cognizant of that and mind our past a little bit and just appreciate the stuff that we have. And what we have here is a really special 2D Mario game that I think is really, really strong in all of the right ways, even if it didn't go quite as hard as I wanted it to. Not my dream Mario game, but still really, really good and special, and certainly one of my favorite games on the Nintendo Switch this year. But I appreciate you for making it to the end of the review. I appreciate you for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions about the game. I'll answer them. If you want to chat about the game, I would be happy to. And hey, we have a free, friendly, welcoming Discord. The links are in the video description for that as well, where there's plenty of chatter going on about the game. I'm also one of the co-hosts of a weekly Nintendo podcast that we do here at Carpool Gaming called The Nintendo Drive, where there's plenty of Nintendo talk going on every single week over there. It's super fun. Come and hang out with us on there. We'd love to have you. And of course, yeah, real quick before you go, like and subscribe for way more stuff like this here on Carpool Gaming. It has been my absolute pleasure to sit here and talk to you about Mario. It's one of my favorite things to do, and I hope I get to keep doing it for the rest of my life. So yeah, until next time.